very excited today. First time to do the Shroud presentation outdoor. It reminds me of Pierre Barbet. He's a French surgeon, and his life changed when he saw the Shroud outdoors for the first time. They were displaying it, and the first time they were getting it outside, and he was feet from the Shroud, and he was looking at the Shroud, and he noticed the difference between the image and the blood stains, because in the sun the blood stains really fluoresce. It becomes very red. So now he had an emotional experience, and then he could not stop studying the Shroud. And he wrote the first book on the Shroud, Dr. Calvary, which was translated to Arabic, and which is the first book I read that got me hooked into the Shroud. So it's beautiful to do it outdoor. I'm actually, this is the first time I see the replica outdoor, which it clarifies much more than fluorescent light. So,
glad that you're providing this.
Yes, this is a miracle. So, the objectives of today, we have minor objectives and major objectives. The minor objective is to learn what is the Shroud of Turin, why the scientific interest in the Shroud, and how can we know it belongs to Jesus. These are all minor objectives. Because Jesus in the last day is not going to come and say, you didn't believe in the Shroud. No, he's not. He's going to say, I never knew you, or I know you. So our major objective is to know Christ through the Shroud, to learn about his suffering and how much he loves us. So if you want to learn anything from today, this is what I hope you get from this presentation. So the Shroud, what is the Shroud? So the Shroud is basically our uniform in death. So when we're buried, all the Abrahamic religions, whether Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, we do similar things, very, very close to each other. Basically, you're wrapped in a white linen or cotton cloth, single cloth. The Jewish customs are detailed more in the Talmud. There is a section in the Talmud called Semaphore Tractate, chapter 10, 11, and 12. That's where you go to learn about the customs, because according to St. John, that he was buried according to the custom of the Jews. He didn't say according to the law of Moses, according to the custom of the Jews, which the Talmud really is the rabbi's interpretation to the law, which makes it binding. So the Talmud and the Torah are both binding to the Jewish people. They have other customs that are not binding. They call it minhag. These are customs that are not binding. Like the yes.
Why did the Jews bury everything in Jewish life?
That's beautiful. Because according to the Gospels, someone felt really bad about Jesus' dying. His name was Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus. Both were members of the Sanhedrin. So the Sanhedrin is what judged Jesus. So they were against him. We see in the Gospel of John also that Nicodemus was trying to defend Jesus. And they were really upset when he was crucified. And they risked everything. So we learned that Joseph of Arimathea went boldly to Pilate, requested to give Jesus proper burial, which is not common in crucifixion. The Romans usually don't bury the crucified. They either leave them hanging until the birds eat them up, or they throw them in common graves. They don't give them proper burial. But the Gospels tell us that actually Jesus received proper burial because of Joseph of Arimathea's sacrifice and the risk he took, and Nicodemus as well. Two people who were hidden before they were worried about the consequence of believing in Jesus. They were secret disciples. You know that Nicodemus came to Jesus in John chapter 3 at night. Same with Joseph of Arimathea. We learn from John that he was a secret disciple. He was following Jesus underground. So those came out and did give him proper burial. So these are the things we do in Jewish custom. They have to guard the body until burial. Someone has to be there until he's buried, and they cite the Psalm, especially Psalm 91, has to be buried in the same day as soon as possible. The clock starts ticking when someone dies. You have to bury him as soon as possible. There is tahara, which is washing. There is anointing. The word for anointing the body is urim, from which we get the mayun. We close the eyes. We don't put stuff on the eyes. That's minhag. We put coins. We found coins in some of the skeletons that fell through the eye when the body decomposed. But that's not dictated in the Talmud. They bind the jaw with a chain band. It goes under the jaw and over the head. And they put spice on both sides. We sometimes say that the myrrh and the aloe that Nicodemus bought, 75 pounds, a lot of spice, that was applied to the body. That's actually not what the gospel says. It was bound with the spice. So they put the spice on both sides of the body and then they bind it. That's more like the flowers for autumn. And that was a royal treatment. This was very expensive. They estimated around $150,000 to $200,000 worth of spice there. Then we bind the whole thing with the spice. So we bind the whole thing. We see this written about the gospel according to Matthew, that Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man, very important. Everything at the burial was rich. So the cloth was very expensive, very expensive. They estimated to be one tunic of fine linen is around 280 days of labor. So if you count by today's measure, it's around $60,000. The cloth was this size. The tomb was very expensive that Joseph of Arimathea gave Jesus. We know that poor people were buried in the ground. If you're a rich man, you get a rock-cut tomb. Okay? If you're a very rich man, you get a rolling stone. Out of 900 tombs, they only found 4 tombs with rolling stones. And they were the most rich people. Okay? If you're extremely rich, then you're buried in a rock-cut tomb in round stone outside and near the city. This tomb qualifies in all of them. It would be very expensive to give a tomb like this to Jesus. And also, we learned that the spice that we put on both sides was very expensive, and the anointing of the body that happens a week before. We know that Mary, Lazarus' sister, anointed Jesus, and Jesus said this was for my burial, because he knew he was not going to be anointed the following week. And that was expensive too. Remember, Judas complained, why the waste? Why this is not given? But he was, of course, he wanted the money for himself. So the rich man is very significant. And then he said they wrap it in a clean katharos, means pure. This is a Jewish cloth. Why? Because it's manufactured in a place that doesn't mix linen and wool. So it's wool free. There was not found any wool on the shroud, which is very significant because it's not manufactured in a place that manufactures wool. Like when you do peanut allergy now and the chocolate may contain nuts because the manufacturing facility may process nuts. Same thing here. This is manufactured in a place that doesn't process wool to make it kosher. So that's why it's clean, and it's linen cloth because the symbol is singular linen, fine linen, singular. Very important because a lot of people, especially from Protestant background, they only mention John. Like there's a website called Answers in Genesis. They say there is no way this is Jesus because he was buried in strips of linen. Because John says plural. The word St. John uses is orthonia. The linen cloth, as you can see, it is plural, orthonia. But there is a reason why St. John mentions that. We read in John chapter 20 that stooping down and looking in, he saw the linen cloth plural, lying. Lying because it was, there is no hair in the original, by the way. It's just lying. So it was packaged up like this, and then it was like this. So the reason they believed in the resurrection is not because of the empty tomb. If you remember, Mary Magdalene went first, and when she saw the stone was moved, she ran back and told them someone stole this. Which is logic, because if you go to home and you find someone broke the window or broke the door, what you assume is that someone stole whatever is in the house. But when they came back, we see 3 times St. John mentions that, which is very important. He saw the linen lying, he saw the linen lying, and he saw the linen lying. He saw and believed. So 3 times he repeated that he looked, and this is what he saw and believe. Even in the other Gospels, the angel told the Marys, look where he was laid. This is what made them believe in the resurrection, that he was packaged like this and the cloth was empty from the body. So they knew he exited the cloth. So the reason St. John mentions plural is because he's mentioning the other parts of the package. It's not just the single cloth that's mentioned in Matthew, Luke, and Mark, it's also the binding. That's very important. When you compare them, so Matthew mentions wrapping in single, Mark mentions wrapping in single, Luke mentions wrapping in single, but then he uses the aphonia to describe the same thing, which really makes us understand that they're talking about the same thing. And then John writes aphonia, and he mentions a different verb that is bound with. He was bound with the aphonia, and then he found the aphonia blind, which means that the aphonia was empty of the body. Where is the shroud now? It's in northern Italy, in the city of Turin. In this cathedral, behind the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, behind it there is a chapel called the Chapel of the Holy Shroud. The shroud has been there since 1694. This was built for the shroud. The shroud was owned most of the time privately. It was owned by the royal family of Italy, the Savoys. They were very rich, and they built this cathedral to house the shroud. In 1983, they gave up the shroud to the living Pope. He wrote in his will that it should be given to the living Pope. And now it's owned by the living Pope. And it's still kept here. He only had one condition, that the shroud stays in Turin. That was his only condition, because this was their hometown. This is the actual shroud. I saw this in 2015. I took this picture. The shroud is rarely displayed. It was only displayed 6 times in the last 200 years. 1900, 1931, 1978, 2000, 2010, and 2015. It's supposed to be displayed in 2025, but they canceled the exposition because they were worried about the shroud. You only get 3 minutes in front of the shroud, and of course there's guards there. But I understand, because they said when we were walking in, they said don't use flash, and everybody was using flash, so people don't really listen to the instruction, and that puts the shroud at risk. The second reason is they said that when it's displayed like this, it puts tension on the fibers, so they want to display it flat, and they'll put a mirror next time on top of it so you can see through the mirror, but you're not going to display it this way. The shroud is kept in a reliquary made by the company that manufactures spaceships in Italia. It's called Alenia Spazio, they make spaceships, and it's under 99.5% argon that changes twice a year. Oxygen 0.5%, it's temperature control, humidity control, and the glass is bulletproof. So what's on the shroud? The first thing I want you to try to see, I want your eyes to get used to the shroud. This is it's a wealth of information really, on this piece of linen. This is actually cotton. This is a replica.
Sorry, Mike. So this one you're bringing, thank you so much. Is that the actual size?
The actual size, yes. This was a picture taken in 1978 by a Jewish photographer, and he prints it in California. He passed away last June, so I don't know if people can get this anymore, but there is another company that prints another copy, which is from Italy. So, if you look here, the shroud, as I saw it in 2015, is a little bit different than this one. This is 1978. You can see the patches. There are patches here. Those were removed in 2002. See, this is directly, there's no patch anymore. This is directly sewn into a backing. And you can see here the carbon 14 sample is missing. It's taken from here. So this is before the carbon 14 test. That's the only two difference between them. So the first thing people see when they look at the shroud are the burn marks. This is the clearest thing. So it's darker than anything else. And it's repeated. You can see pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And these are all other patches also. So the shroud had almost, it's a miracle that we still have. It was kept in a church in Chambéry, France. It was owned by the Savoys, and this was their hometown before Turin. And they kept it behind the altar, and and this was caged, and you needed 4 people present, 4 keys present to open the gate. And there was some stories say that there was fighting between the Orthodox, the Catholic, and the Protestant, and during the feast day they burned the church. So the whole church was on fire. So these people risked their lives. The canon, a blacksmith, and 2 Franciscans. They couldn't get to the church from the door. They had to go from the palace next door. There was a tunnel that opens in the middle of the church. They went through the tunnel. They broke the gate, and they got the shroud out after throwing water on the box. There was a silver box. The silver box started to melt, and a drop of silver went through all the layers. As you can see, it's repeated because it was folded up. Some people say the shroud is a painting. When was the last time you saw a painting stored folded? It doesn't work because the folding will destroy the paint in the crease. This is not what you see here. The painting does not, the folding does not affect the image of the painting. We got the shroud out, but the damage was there, and the nuns patched it up to prevent further damage. This is the marks that you see here, 1532. There is another set of burn holes, those 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see this is the biggest one, smaller, smallest, smaller, and smallest. Because the shroud was folded at 4 layers, and we don't know when this happened. We estimate this happened during liturgical service. That the shroud was kept over the altar, folded in 4, and incense fell on the shroud. Because it looks like an incense damage that we observe in our churches. So it's very important because there's 4 of them. And why it's important? Because there's a drawing from 1192 to 1195 that shows those burn holes. You see them here. The inverted L-shaped burn holes. You see the man with the shroud? Similar pattern like the one we have. So whoever painted this was looking at the shroud. And the damage happened before 1192. And that's 70 years before the earliest pattern for Turin. So they said that shroud was 1260 to 1390. That's 70 years before that. So that by itself proves that there's something wrong with the pattern. There's also water stains. 2 sets of water stains. You can see the sets that are close to the burn marks happened during the fire in 1532. There is another set, we call them the diamond water stains, those big ones. We don't know when this happened, but they did studies and they replicated the pattern when the shroud is kept like an accordion in a jar like the ones for the Dead Sea Scrolls. So at some point the shroud was kept hidden in this pattern, and there was condensation at the bottom, and that would cause the pattern that we see on the second set of diamond water stains. The fire and the water prove that this is not a paint. Why? Because the paint did not move. This is the legs of the man, and the image is not affected by the water stain, and it's not affected by the fire. If it was organic paint, it would be affected by the fire. If it was inorganic paint, it would move with the water. Neither happened. So that by itself is a test that nobody would dare to do. It was tested by fire and water. What's really important is the image of the man. And there is an image. So if someone was there, like this, you have the bottom part here, and this was pulled over. So at this top, you will have the front image. At the bottom, you will have the back image. Okay? There is an image of a man, full image, front and back. You see the face? Can someone point me to the right hand? Where's the right hand? Show me, which one? This is the right hand? No. This is the right hand. Why? Because it's a mirror image. So this is the right hand. This is the right hand. This is the left hand. Okay? The left hand will be showing on this side because it's a mirror image. So it will show as if it's the right hand, but it's really the left hand. The left hand is over the right hand. The left hand is over the right hand. Okay? You get that? It's important. Anytime you look at a shroud image that looks like that, like yellow in color and light, it means you have to invert the sides. But if it's black and white, that's a negative image. The sides have already been inverted. You don't need to invert the sides. The image is only 15% darker than the background. It's very faint. When you go to the shroud and see it, you have to step back at least 3 meters before you can see what's the image. If you come close, the image disappears. I know this is a picture, so you can actually see the shroud when you come close. But the original, when you step back, it disappears. The image disappears. Notice they gave him a loincloth. Every time someone saw the shroud, even though Jesus is completely naked on the shroud, they could not paint him naked. They had to give him a loincloth. All these copies that were made of the shroud, they gave him a loincloth. And that again is as an evidence that this is not a painting. Nobody would dare paint Jesus completely naked like this. Now my question to you, was Jesus crucified? Was he or was he not? There's going to be gifts. So I want you to think with me. Don't be afraid to answer.
Was he crucified? That's the first time?
Was he crucified naked or not?
I was thrown off the rope. After it was fully naked.
Okay. Anybody else?
What was the tradition that?
What?
What
The Romans crucified people naked. But some people would say that the Romans respected Jewish culture. Like when they brought the bodies before darkness, before at the same day they had to brought the bodies. That's a Jewish thing, because the Romans can keep their bodies crucified for weeks.
Yeah.
So that's the question. Yes.
I believe he was, but just for like out of respect, when you see like a crucifix, they do cover parts of his body.
Okay. So we're speculating, right? Can we know? Can we know exactly what happened? Who was there? Who was under the cross? There was one disciple under the cross. John. What did he write? So this is what John wrote. Then the soldiers, when they had crucified Jesus, took his garments, plural. Garments, plural. The word for garments, emation. So they made it 4 parts, to each soldier a part. So there was 4 soldiers, each one took a piece of clothing. You take the sandal, you take the belt, you take the coat, you take the scarf. We distributed the pieces of clothing. But he didn't stop there. He said also the tunic. If you look at this word in the Greek, I just screenshot. This is a screenshot. I didn't know that. It says keton, a tunic, undergarment, worn next to the skin. This was his underwear. So they took his clothes and they took his underwear. So it's definitely, according to John, he was crucified. And this was prophesied 1,000 years before. It's a prophet David said, "They divided my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." So there's no accident here. This is on Pascha by Bishop Benito of Sardis. He writes, "The sovereign has been made unrecognizable by his naked body. He is not even allowed garment to keep him from view. That is why the luminaries turned away and the day was darkened, that he might hide the one stripped there upon the tomb." So according to this bishop, he was naked, and that's why it darkened. It was 3 hours of darkness that was documented by 2 pagan historians, and they were explaining it as if it's an eclipse of the sun. And we have a testimony from Julius Africanus in the 2nd century saying that this is impossible because on the Passover you can't have a solar eclipse because the moon is actually the earth is between the moon and the sun. To have a solar eclipse, the moon has to be between the earth and the sun. No one takes my life from me. I lay it down myself. I have the power to lay it down and I have the power to take it up again. So if you know that this wasn't an accident, my second question is, Why was Jesus crucified? No accidents here. He came, he knew he was going to be crucified. Why did he do it? And it's prophesied 1,000 years ago. Come on, guys. No answer? Yes.
I think they did to comparison.
Yes.
The same way they did.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
True. But that's why they did it. Why did he do it? There was no accident. He's not the victim. He came, he knew this was going to happen. He said, no one takes my life from me. I lay it down and I pick it up again. There's no accident. So,
Does that have to do with unbelief?
thank you. Thank you. So, we say in midnight praise, he took what is ours and gave us what is his. This was, we were naked. We were naked. If you remember, Saint Gregory of Nazianzus also said that which is not assumed is not here. He had to take what is ours before he can heal. He said, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. He had to take this old wineskin and fix it before he can give us the new. For as many of you as were baptized into Christ have put on Christ. How do we put on Christ? Because he put us on the cross first. And this is the Shroud. He said he was stripped of his garments so that naked he might bear our nakedness, and in his nakedness clothe us with the garment of his own corruption. The same in the divine liturgy. And he ascended upon the cross naked that he might clothe us with the garment of his righteousness. And this is the shame. The shame that we had. Remember when Adam said, I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. Shame can be more painful than death sometimes. And that's what, you remember in Egypt we used to say, the Rabb al-Ard al-Tiblan, that's because shame can be more painful than death. But Jesus took our shame. If you remember, God gave Adam and Eve tunics made of leather. It's the same word. In Hebrew, ketonet is the same word for keton. This is tunic covered, worn next to the person. This keton is worn undergarment, worn next to the skin. So God covered them with ketonet. Jesus was stripped off his keton. And this is what Jesus did. And St. Paul said in Hebrews, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame. What does despise mean? The original word is look down. Jesus looked down on the shame. That same thing that's looking down on us, Jesus looked down on it. That's our Savior. So just like he walked over the waves that were drowning them, okay, he did the same thing to our shame. So, and this was prophesied in the book of Isaiah, that he destroyed death, he wiped away the suffering, and he removed our shame. He killed sin by the tree, just like the tree brought sin, he hung on a tree, and he killed sin by the tree, as we see in the middle of the system. That's why in him we have no shame. There are blood stains on the shroud, but that's actual blood. You can see it here. You can see the crown of thorns. You can see the blood here on the back. You can see the blood on the front as well from the nails and the hands and the side one. So there's lots of blood on the shroud. And this is a Jewish chemist, and he tested the blood microscopic under the microscope. His name is Alan Adam. And he said the blood of the shroud is not whole blood but blood exudates. It means that nobody put blood on a cloth. Fake. No, the blood was on a body and it clotted on a body. And then the cloth was placed on that same body, and that's how it transferred. The exudate is what you have on a bandage. When you bandage a wound and you remove the bandage, what's left on the bandage is the exudate. He said also that the blood contains high levels of bilirubin, which means that the blood of the man was eaten was severely flogged and crucified. You get bilirubin from bruising, so you have a hematoma. If someone beats you and you have a hematoma under the skin, the body breaks up the hematomas and you end up with bilirubin. In the first stage, it's unconjugated and then it goes to the liver to be conjugated. The blood had contained a lot of bilirubin that's unconjugated. So again, who would think of putting something like this in the shroud? But if there's so much blood on the shroud, we said that part of the Jewish customs is tahara, they have to wash the body. So how do we have so much blood on the shroud after the washing? So that's a question that answered by the Jewish custom. If you read the Jewish customs, from the time of Jesus until today, it's the same thing. When the terrorist attacks happen, we don't wash the body. Why? Because the blood is part of the body that has to be buried with it. They call it life blood. And that's what's in the Jewish way of praying for war. Where the deceased died instantaneously through violence or accident, the body and the organs are completely smeared with blood. No washing of the tahara is performed. The body is placed in a casket without the clothes being removed. Only a sheet singular is wrapped around it. Over the clothes, the blood is part of the body and may not be separated from it in death. So Jesus was not washed, which matches the customs of the Jews. And you have here also the abridged version of the 16th century code of Jewish law, same thing. They add another thing. If someone bleeds and the blood fell on the ground after death, you're talking about the blood that emanates after death. If you bleed before death, that's no problem. It's the lifeblood that takes place after death. So if someone bleeds after death and the blood fell on the ground, they have to scoop the dirt and bury it with him, because the blood cannot be separated from the body. We know that Jesus had a lot of blood on him, so yes.
Quick question here comes to mind. You know, in Jerusalem, in the church, the subject of the church, right?
Yes.
Okay. So.
Yeah, I don't believe in that. That's actually started in the Middle Ages. You did not leave the body outside in the open like this. So the cave where Jesus was buried is the edicule, where we go inside. That stone is outside, and if you look at the history, it was placed there in the time of the crucifixion.
Yeah, we know the place is not there.
Yeah.
It was moved from somewhere else.
Yeah.
But you say that he was washed or was treated.
According to the Jewish custom, he should not be washed.
Is he then just wrapped on that?
So what they did is they...
Sorry if I'm
Yeah, no, that's
good.
beautiful. I love it. So what they did, according to the Gospel of St. John,
If it's coming up, it's okay. We can.
No, this is outside. Outside the presentation.
Oh, okay.
I have like 170 slides, so I don't say everything.
Okay.
This is not it. So Nicodemus, who at first came to the Jesus by that, also came bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloe. Myrrh is granular like this, and aloe is also granular like this. So this wasn't like an ointment that they applied on him. That was spices that was put on both sides, and that's actually according to the Talmud. Spices should be placed at the sides of every deceased person. This is in chapter 10, 3rd and 8th century AD. But the tradition goes way before that. It was written between the 3rd and 8th century, but the tradition goes way before that. So, and then he said they took the body of Jesus and bound it in the strips of linen with the spice. That's all what's written in the Gospel. So there was no washing or preparation, as the custom of the Jews is today. The women were coming on Sunday morning to anoint the body. So the tahara and the anointed was supposed to happen later on. But Jesus was anointed.
To the customs of the Jews?
According to the custom. So the custom of the Jews, the custom of the Jews is tahara and anointing happens together. But we don't know if they were going to wash him even, because they came with the ointment to apply on the body. Yeah, but they're not supposed to wash the blood. That's clearly, even today I watched an hour of a Jewish lady explaining to other people. She's actually an expert in burial, and she was explaining to them that the same cultures, the custom stands today, but they put the clothes in a plastic bag and they bury it with it. So back in the days, they don't even take the clothes that splattered with blood. They just wrap the cloth around the whole package. You don't wash it. You just leave it there and leave it. Now they take the clothes, but they put it in a plastic bag and bury it with it. The blood should not be removed. And if you see the shroud, these parts are not shown. The sides are not shown. So that could be the spice that was placed on both sides of the body.
Sorry for this.
No, that's good. I love questions. So one very important thing, because some scientists said the body was washed, and some scientists said the body is not washed. The scientist who said the body was washed is saying that the blood was already dry, because the blood already clotted when he was on the cross. So he said the blood was dry. How did the blood transfer to the cloth? So that's the question he was posing. And he said the body must have been washed, and then blood came out again. But we did a study recently, because on the shroud, the blood shows serum halos. So when the blood clots on the body, it shrinks and then the clear serum stains around the blood stains. And if someone was washed, these serum halos would disappear. It would only be because it's very easy to remove by water. So if blood was washed, serum halos would not be there. There are serum halos all over the shroud, which also shows that the body was not washed. This is the scientist who did, and he's a skeptic actually. And this is recent. 2025, he did a study, and he shows that if the body was washed, the serum halos would not be there. And he concluded the washing hypothesis is not consistent with what is observed on the shore. The nail wounds are in the wrist, not in the hand. So we read in the Gospels that come put your finger in my hand. But the word for hand actually will show the whole arm. So we used to paint the nail in the hand, never in the wrist, until they saw the shroud, and the shroud clearly shows the nail in the wrist. And that's actually more scientific, because the nail in the hand would cut through the skin, and the body would rip through the whole, because of the weight of the body. So the nail would rip through, but in the wrist, the nail would be in a very strong support by the tendons, and without breaking the body, because the small bone, the bones would be pushed to the side using the nail. I have a nail.
So that part shows where the nail
Yes.
on the wrist.
Yes, this is where the nail is.
His hands are back.
This is where the nail is.
His hands are this is like
No, it's on top. This is where the nail is. The other hand, you don't see the nail because it's covered by the left hand. The right hand is covered by the left hand. This is the right hand. This is the left hand. It's covered by the left hand. So you don't see the nail, but you see the blood flowing from the same end. So the blood flowing on the arm and blood flowing from the arm. But the nail is here. If you this is the middle finger. If you go towards the thumb, you put your finger here. This is the place where closer to the thumb, closer to the thumb. The blood flow shows the hands were not symmetrically placed. The right hand was hanging at a right angle. The left hand was stretched. How do we know that? Because the blood here is clearly flowing. This is the right hand. Blood is clearly flowing on the arm itself. And then the blood would pool under the elbow because it's hanging at a 90-degree angle. The blood would flow and pool under the elbow. When they put the cloth under the elbow here, that stain is shown outside the body. So this is where the elbow ends. The blood stain under the elbow is shown only on one side. On the left hand, the blood is in a V shape because the hand was slanted. So this hand was straight, the blood was flowing down. This hand was slanted, the blood was not pooling under the elbow, and that's why there is no blood off image here. So this actually, a doctor from Boston spent 3 years studying just to understand how is this blood stain outside the elbow, outside the elbow. This is his name, Gilbert Lahore. This is another doctor. I'm a pharmacist, I'm not a doctor. So whenever I speak medical information, I give you the reference that you can search it. This is Dr. Joseph Galvesha from Philadelphia, and he studied the nail wound on the feet. I'm going to show you an animation just to show you, because the feet were not also the same position. So the right foot was directly on the cross. This is what you see here. This is the right foot, complete right foot. This is the left foot. You don't see the whole thing because they're on top of each other. So the right foot was directly on the cross. It wasn't moving. The left foot was moving. Why? Because he had to push himself up to breathe. So the left foot was swiveling. But you can see from the blood stain, this is the blood stain of the right foot, and this is the blood stain on the left foot. Looks like a number 3 looking to the side. Why would the blood show this pattern? This is why. So the foot would be straight, and the wound would be here. The blood would flow down, and then it would turn because there is flesh here. The blood would flow down, and then it would turn. And then when the foot turns, when it swivels, the blood would flow down. Okay? And then when it's straightened up again, that's exactly what you have here. This is the blood stain on the left foot. That's why we believe that the left foot was moving. It's moving. Push up. The right foot was not moving. The right foot, the blood would go down. Again, it would turn. Because the flesh is here, it would turn. And then this peculiar blood stain that you see here, you can see it almost made a detour. Why would the blood stain, why would this blood stain, instead of going down with gravity, moved a little bit and then went down? Why would that happen? Think with you.
There's a clotting happening.
There's a clot, yes.
There's a clotting happening. Clot is happening, so I'm going to put on top of the other one, so
This was directly on the crossing. Something very close, very close. What was here? The nail. The nail was here. So there is no, the blood cannot go, cannot go against it.
It's okay, it's okay.
Yeah, so the nail is here. And then not only the nail pushed the flesh to the sides. So you have here a ball of flesh. But any blood emanating over the nail, it has no way of going down. It has to go to the side. It has to make it. And that's what you see. What about the blood that's going up? How is the blood going up? That's because when they move the nail, blood continued to flow and it poured on the ankle. And he was on this edge. And this is what you have. This is the blood stain on the right foot. Some people say because they found nails still attached to the heel bone in Jerusalem that Jesus had to have a nail in his heel bone, which is not shown here. So what's the answer to this? We found two bones through the heel bone. The answer is very simple. We have Josephus during the same time. He said they nailed them in many different positions. So not because we found two people crucified, that they nailed everybody the same way. They didn't. According to Josephus, they nailed some people upside down, they nailed them sideways, they nailed them on a cross, X. Sometimes it's a T. We were very creative with how we nailed You see the crown of thorns, you see blood stains front and back. So this is front and this is back. The blood stains, there is 13 rivulets in the front and 20 rivulets in the back. And this is what we know happens to Jesus. He twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. It's not a circlet of thorns, it's a cap of thorns. Because as you can see, it's not just one line, it's the cover of the whole. There is a place here where you don't see anything in between. There's nothing here. No blood, no image. Why? Because there was a shin bag. There was a shin bag. And that's why the face looks a little bit narrow. Because this white area here is because of the shin bag. Okay? It goes over the head and around the cheeks.
It's a jaw routine.
Yes, to keep the jaw closed. You don't want the eyes to open, you don't want the jaws to open. The side wound. The side wound is showing on the shroud on the right side, between the 6th and 7th rib, just below his breast. This is what you see here. And we know from the gospel that they pierce this side with a spear. The size of the wound is 4 centimeters by 1.5 centimeters, which matches the Roman lance. These are lances from the internet. This is the actual picture from the internet. And this is the size that you have here, 4 centimeters by 1.5, and the blood is flowing from the wound. Why the right side? Why was he lanced on the right side? Anybody? This is a statue from 220 BC. There's only one injury in the exact same spot on the right side. So they knew what they were doing. Why would they lance him on the right side, not the left side? There's some medical information here, I will show you. This is from the physical death of Jesus Christ. It was published in Jana in 1986. This is a secular organization. Yes.
Anyone has that in his heart?
Thank you. You get a picture?
I was waiting for it.
They wanted to puncture his heart. So that's how he was dead. You don't need to puncture his heart. You know if someone is breathing or not. The estimate is that he stayed like this for an hour on the cross, not breathing. The color of the skin would change. But he wanted to confirm, to go to Pilate, say, yeah, he's dead, we're sure about that. So they pierced his heart, and that was a process. They knew exactly how to hit the heart and how to get blood from the heart. Why? Because according to the paper, although the side wound was not designated by Jewish tradition, has been depicted on the right side. Supporting this tradition is the fact that a large flow of blood will be more likely with the perforation of the distended and thin wound's right atrium. So this is the heart. The right atrium extends to the right side by an inch. This is the ventricle. This is the thick muscle, and it will be empty of blood. When we die, the ventricle is contracted. There's no blood in it. This is the atrium. It's thin wall, and it will be loaded with blood when we die. So he knew exactly where to puncture to get the blood out, straight out of the heart. And this is what they say here. Although the side of wound may never be established with certainty, the right side seemed more probable than the left. And this is secular organization. This is Dr. Frederick Zagaby. He said that the water that came first is from the pleural effusion. So when he was flogged, the pleural cavity around the lungs started filling up with water. And that's why this is an X-ray of someone who had pleural effusion. This is the heart. So the lens would go here, puncture the pleural cavity first, get the water, and then puncture the heart, get the blood. The Bible says blood and water.
Where did the water come from?
Sorry?
Where did the water come
From the pleural effusion. Around the lungs, because of the severe flogging, he would start inflammation in the area around the lungs, and that would fill with water or pleural fluid. It's clear.
Some time to form.
Yes, he was flogged.
There are some other theories that actually explained by some of our bishops that the plasma was separated
Yes.
from the rest of the blood. That's
Yes.
why we have water and we have.
Yes.
So it's not water or pulmonary water as you say.
Yes.
It's plasma. Is
Yes.
that true?
Yes, I based this on Frederick Zagaby. He wrote a book called The Crucifixion of Christ. This guy spent 38 years studying crucifixion. He had a cross built in his office. and he would put his son on the cross, but not nail him, but binding and stuff, and he would measure his oxygen level, his breathing, everything. Nobody studied crucifixion more than this guy. And he had 4 pages in his book on this point. And he had a table.
Bursting in the heart.
Yes. So there is 3 things that could produce water. The pleural, which is surrounding the lungs, this is one option. The second option is the lungs themselves are filled with pulmonary edema fluid. And then the heart, around the heart there is... أنا صيدلي.
It takes time to form.
Yes.
It's a very short time. Between the time he was stopped and then he died.
No, he was dead an hour before.
Is this enough for forming edema?
The edema happened in the flogging part. In the morning when he was flogged before the crucifixion, Pilate wanted to put him in, like flog him and then put him in front of them and say, behold the man, so that he will let him go. So the flogging happened very early. The flogging, that's what caused the pulmonary. So he had a table with all the options, and he actually goes to
Would you say
medicine.
that the heart bursted or never bursted?
No, the heart was punctured by the lance.
Of course.
Yeah, there are people who say because of the severe flogging, the blood actually punctured the pleural cavity, and there was, they call it hemothorax. So hemothorax is blood, not clear fluid around the lungs, actually blood around the lungs, and that could separate and produce blood and water. So this is another theory, but it's possible. This is what this was Dr. C. It's plural. He said that based on his experience, and he's a forensic pathologist. He used to be Rockland County, New York. He had forensic experience, big forensic experience. He said the amount of blood that would come from the heart, the water that would come from the heart is not enough. He said even he tried to put a needle through the body. You don't get a lot of water except from the pleural field. That would produce a lot of water into the outside. And then he said after they removed, there would be pneumothorax, so the air would rush in and collapse the lungs as well. So that's what his estimate is.
If this is more of a asphyxia than what you just explained.
Yeah, but he's already there. So actually, I will show you the.
So the cause of death here would be the severe bleeding from the heart.
That's what I will show you. The cause of death. According to Dr. Frederick Zarelli, Chief Medical Examiner of Rockland County, he said, if I were to certify the cause of Jesus' death in my official capacity as a medical examiner, the death certificate would read as follows. Cause of death, cardiac and respiratory arrest due to hypovolemic and traumatic shock due to crucifixion. That's his official statement. So it's the breathing and the circulatory system collapsed because of what Jesus went through. It's really difficult to say, is it the suffocation or the heart? We're not sure. But his estimate is more heart than suffocation. The consensus of the other doctors, they think it's more suffocation than heart. So he suffocated from the fluids on his lung. Dr. Zagabi says it's more the heart, that's why he screamed loudly at the end.
I don't think this topic will die this separation. I think it's what we believe in, because there is separation of the blood and the body.
That's what he's saying. He's saying it's the heart, not
Yes.
the... Yeah.
And he's saying here, respiratory arrest.
Because the heart and lungs are all connected. It's both together. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, so he was beaten, scoring several times.
Yes.
So he already suffered hypovolemia secondary to the fact that he even got there. So it would have been hypovolemia first, and then the cardiac arrest
Yes.
would have predominated.
Yes.
Asphyxia would have been secondary to the
Secondary,
fact that
yes.
once he became crucified, then he would have.
Yes, that's what he is.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
primary, it's cardiac.
Yeah.
And that's why Jesus
And on his way, he was being beaten, scoring, so
Yes.
he lost a lot of blood volume
Yes,
as a
correct.
result. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. You're a doctor, right?
Medicine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another reason why it's the right side, because the Romans are trained to get you from the right side. Why? Because the enemy comes with a shield covering the left side completely. He had this big shield when the gladiators used to fight. That big shield completely covers the left side. So to kill you, they have to learn where to stab you from the right side. Why is the moon slanted like this? Why not like this? Why slanted? Yes. Oh, good job. Yes. So the ribs are slanted. You see how the ribs go? So they don't want the ribs. They want the heart. So they have to go through the ribs. And the size, 1.5 centimeter, will easily go through the ribs and puncture the heart. Was the cross high or low? Who said high? Why?
No particular reason. I just think it would have had to be an elevated level from the depictions that we've seen, whether it be these or pictures.
Yeah, this is Mel
You
Gibson.
can see that people.
It's Mel Gibson of
temperature.
California.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Why is high? What? No? Who said low? Yes, why low?
Maybe the partial weight is the center of gravity is more weight.
Can we know from the Gospels? Can we know? What? I'll give you a clue. Jesus said, I thirst.
With the ladder?
No. Yes.
They have to put it on a stick.
Yes. To reach his mouth, they have to put it on a stick. Which stick? St. John actually gives us the name of the plant. What? Reed, yeah, made of what? Hyssop.
Because we mentioned it in Psalms 50.
Yes. So hyssop. First of all, from the shroud, we know it wasn't a high cross. So here, to humiliate him, they had to put him on a high spot. But that's why they put him on a rock. So the rock outside the gate, the Golgotha, is a rock. So even when you go to the Holy Sepulchre, you have to climb steps to go to the place of the crucifixion. The burial was down, but the crucifixion was high on a rock. And it was right next to the gate, which is the garden gate. So people walking in would mock him, spit on him, all of that. But the cross was not high. Why? Because if it was high, you want to get his heart, you have to go through the stomach, not through the 6th and 7th rib. The angle of impact was like this, not like this. So they punctured like this, not like this. But we know from the Gospels that they used hyssop. Hyssop is 1.5 to 2 feet. Hyssop is not a big branch. Hyssop is mentioned in the Old Testament. They used hyssop to apply the blood on the doorposts. It's not a long stick. It's only 1.5 to 2 feet. I have giant hyssop in my backyard. It's 3 feet. And that's giant hyssop. So it's not a long plant. So they just couldn't reach his mouth. They just needed 1 more feet. That's it. So it was a short cross. This is the blood on the bag. This is here. I don't know if you see it now. This is the blood. This is flowing sideways. So when they were putting this under him, they had to turn him to the side. Okay? So to touch the cloth under. So the blood that was flowing still from the side wound, it fell across the bag here. And they did the studies, this actually did person. The blood flowed like this, and then when they turned him, the blood flowed like this, exactly what you see here. This was done in 2024. The study also, they compared different dilutions of blood, undiluted 1 to 4, 1 to 10, and the blood on the shroud shows the same as 1 to 4, because it was water and blood mixed together. The scourge marks are very clear. He was scourged completely naked because the buttocks are scourged, the thighs are scourged, the back is scourged, the front is scourged. Why the front is scourged? Because when they were scourging, the belt would go around the body and hit the front as well. So you can see They were scorched from both sides, and you can see the fanning because you were hitting like this, and like this. You can see those marks on the shroud from both sides, one more than the other. Either one person was doing the scourging and he was tired, he went to the other side with the other hand, or there was two people and one was more vicious than the other. There's three different instruments they used. This is the Roman flagram. It has metal bones at the end, bundle-shaped or trees or twos, and you see a lot of those. There is 150 marks, 35% of the score. Then there is the verga, which is almost like a stick, flexible kharazana, زي ما كنا بنقول in Egypt, and that's, you have 170 marks of this. And then you have a different scourge marks on the thigh. You can only see those on the calves, and they estimate this happened during the transfer to the cross because he was wearing clothes. So the only exposed area are the bottom of the legs. You can only see this under ultraviolet light. This is not visible to the naked eye. So why the scientific interest in the shroud? There are three main reasons. There are three impossibilities on this image. The first one was discovered when they took the first picture. I want to show it to you, but do you have an iPhone? Can you get your iPhone now? Okay, can you go to the settings? So, click on the settings, and then go accessibility. Okay, and then go down, display and text. And then choose classic invert. So when you do this, you invert the colors. The lights and darks on your camera now are reversed. Okay? And now open the camera. This is what you look in negative. Sorry, I just yeah. So if you look at the shroud, I don't know if you can see it or not. With the camera. Can you see it? You can come a little bit closer. I can't, unfortunately. If I touch the phone, you lose the. Yeah, disconnect. You see it? Yeah. I'll show you here what you see. So when they took the first picture, this is what he saw. So the whole body, front and back, is much clearer in negative. When you invert the lights and darks, you see a much different picture from what you look on the shroud like this. The guy who took the first picture almost dropped the photographic plate because he couldn't believe his eyes. The image is clearer in the negative. Why? Because this is a negative. So when you invert the negative, you get the positive. That's what happens. When you invert the negative, why would this be a negative? It's like a film. Back in the day, you remember when you used to take a camera and take a picture, and then the sensitive film would take the negative image, and then you have to invert it to get the positive image. So this acts like a sensitive film. But why would linen be a sensitive film? Linen is not photosensitive, and that's the mystery. And that's why the scientists are interested. What kind of energy printed the image on a cloth like this? Because linen is not photosensitive. This is the first thing. Now that you see it much clearer, you can see the injuries on the face. You can see clearly the right cheek is swollen, the nose is swollen, there is a piece missing from the beard, the eyebrows are swollen, the blood is clear. It's much clearer image than before. And it's not just the face, the whole body is clear. The whole front and back. Okay?
Could one determine the height of the body of Christ?
Yes. Yes. 5'10".
5'10"?
5'10", plus or minus, because the cloth stretches, so it's not very accurate, but the estimate is 5'10", plus or minus 5 centimeters.
Average height.
Yeah, yeah. Not that he's actually taller than the average height back then was 5'7", so he was taller than, but not impossibly tall. 5'10".
They do the same thing when you visit like Mummy in Egypt, Pyramid Museum. They don't let you take photos.
They
They
don't let
have like a reason behind it. They don't want
usually we don't want to present the cloth because linen oxidizes. So they are worried about the shroud. Why? Because if it oxidizes, the whole cloth will be yellow and the image will disappear. It's only 15% darker than the background.
So why haven't they carbon dated?
They did carbon dating. It was 1260 to 39. But there is a reason for that. We can discuss this after because we have lots of still.
I want to discuss this, the carbon dating.
Not
Are you
in
gonna
detail.
discuss it?
I can.
This is one of the biggest doubts.
Yes.
And the DNA, why don't they just DNA test the blood?
What?
Why don't they DNA test the
They
blood?
did DNA testing. They found 95% of the DNA. There is lots of DNA on the shroud, so it's been touched by so many people. 95% of the DNA is non-European. Only 5% is European. So that means that the known history of the shroud is all European. So there is a lot of unknown. That's what we learned from this. It's that if only 5% is European, 95% is non-European. It's lots more than we know. So I can go over the carbon.
So right in front of it's the left hand.
80. But again, the scientists say we're not sure because some ancient blood is always testing AB because some bacteria, when they grow on anything, they can give you a false AB. So, but it is AB. So when Seconto-Pia took the first picture and the image was there, they said he faked it. Until 1931, this time it's a professional photographer took the second image and they get the same result. So that proved what Seconto-Pia was not faking. So the image is photographic. This is the first mystery that they're trying to understand. This is Pierre Barbet, this is the French scientist, and this is another French scientist. This guy is agnostic, and both believed in the shroud, even though he was agnostic. He said the image is anatomically flawless and could not be the work of art. This said to describe his entrance as the work of a forger is an attitude which is absurd. You can see clearly the injuries on the cheek. And we know that Jesus was beat twice. In the house of Caiaphas, they beat him, they covered his face and beat him, and said, prophesy who struck you. In the Romans, when they took him, they did another game. So they gave him a crown of thorns, they dressed him up like a king, they gave him a staff. That's the first part where they worshipped him. Hail, King of the Jews. And then they took the staff and hit him on the crown of thorns with the staff. And that's what we read in the gospel. They spit on him and they struck him on the head. They struck him with their hands, struck his head with the reed. So that's why there is a swelling and injuries on the face. They plucked his beard, and you can see part of the beard is missing. In Isaiah 50, we read that I gave my back to those who strike me, and my cheeks to those who pluck out the beard. I did not cover my face from the humiliation and the spitting. And that's beautiful because he didn't. There was no suffering. Notice he didn't say I suffered the stripes or I suffered. He gave. He's in control. He's the one giving. It's an act of love. And that's why we read in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. It's a giving. The nail went in this spot here. As I said, closer to the thumb. If this is the middle finger, it's closer to the thumb. If you put your hand here, You can see the and of course, it's always depicted in the hands. We discussed this before. There's two different places. I'm not going to bother with these discussions. The nail would hit the median nerve, cause severe pain, electric type pain, when it hits the median nerve, severe pain. And he had it in both hands. And it was prophesied 1,000 years. They pierced my hands and my feet. This is Psalm 22.
Using the hands or the wrists.
The hand in the Greek, it covers the elbow to the whole thing. So
But the actual meaning
the wrist, the actual.
because this is contrary to what we see in traditional art.
Yes, yes.
And the 2 feet were held by one nail.
By one nail, yeah. There is different opinion about that, but the consensus is one nail. The shoulder blades retracted, but the arms aren't pushed back. So the shoulder blades are retracted. You can see them clearly here. As if his hands are back. Okay? But his hands are front. So the hands were at one point like this, but they had to force it down. You see the knees are bent, clearly. If you're lying flat on the ground, you cannot have a full foot imprint unless the knees are bent. So to put your feet on the ground, you have to bend the knees. That's why you have a full foot imprint. The head is leaning forward because you can see the angle of the shoulder. The angle of the shoulder is very narrow, not like this. It's narrow.
So, Mike, sorry.
Yes.
So when the Lord Jesus Christ was buried, like he was in that position.
In that
so
position.
the knee was bent.
Yes.
It's not straight.
Yes, in that position. So the head would be leaning forward, the knees are bent, there's one foot on top of the other, and this is what we call, I'm going to get to rigor mortis. So this is the position on the cross. This is when he was crucified, that was the position. And when we die a violent death, the stiffness of death kicks in. So the body that shows on the shroud is actually someone who's been crucified in that position.
Position of crucifixion.
Yes. The rigor mortis starts to dissipate when the body decomposes. So the fact that we have this image in this position means that the body did not decompose. It can stay like this for 1 to 3 days. It peaks in 10 to 24 hours and stays 1 to 3 days when the body starts to decompose. There is injuries on the back from carrying the heavy object. And we know that Jesus carried his cross. The right hand extends 3 centimeters longer than the left hand. So skeptics always say about the hand that the hand is too long. And they say, oh, the artist tried to cover the groin. So he extended the right hand. Why didn't he give him a loincloth? Like all the other artists did. So the right hand is longer than the left hand. And the right shoulder is lower than the left shoulder. The right shoulder is lower than the left shoulder. Okay? 2.5 centimeters. What would cause that? One hand longer, one shoulder lower.
Position of the body.
What?
Position of his body.
Yes, but it's the body is not bent. The spinal cord is straight, but one shoulder is higher than the other.
And carrying the cross itself as an accessory sleeves.
Yes.
his
You got a
body was
picture?
adapted. Sorry?
You got a picture?
No, I don't.
Okay, give it. The shoulder is this, okay. I'll give it to you. So he fell. Jesus definitely fell. We don't have this in the Bible. It's a tradition. If you go to Jerusalem, they will show you the stations of the cross that Jesus fell 3 times. But Jesus definitely fell because we have dirt on the tip of the nose, we have dirt on the knees, and we have dirt on the feet, and we have one shoulder higher than the other. So when he fell in this position, he dislocated his right shoulder. When he dislocated his shoulder, that's why the right hand was hanging, and that's why the blood pooled under the elbow. And that's why we have blood outside the image, under the right hand, but not under the left hand. Now, if you believe that someone coordinated, this blood with the blood flow here, the height of the shoulder and the length of the hand in the front and back image, I have a bridge to sell you in Egypt. Just come talk to me after. So that's the paper that discussed this. And we read from the Psalm 22, I am poured out like water and all my bones are out of joints. All his bones are out of joints. It's not just the hand. The hand would be out of joint because of the nail, both hands and the feet and the shoulder as well. The shoulder injury would be very painful. The fingers are too long, which is true. You can see the fingers, but actually this is not the fingers. The knuckles are here. So you can see those metacarpals. You can see them here. You can see under the skin in the hands. And why would that be? I used to think because of the dehydration, the bones are showing. And I actually read in Psalm 22, I can count all my bones. They look at me and stare. But the scientist did another study. He did an X-ray. And as you know, the thumb is behind from the nail. The thumb is behind the hand. But if you look, you can actually see the thumb on the image. This is the thumb. And Dr. John Jackson did an X-ray and he could see the sun through. So this is not just an image, it actually has X-ray qualities. The energy that caused the image to form came from the inside out and it printed the thumb even though it was behind the head. The last thing is the BPA image analyzer, and this is the second amazing thing about the image is its topography. So it's the BPA image analyzer gives you depth to an image because they used to take a picture of from an aeroplane to the terrain and the valleys would go down and the hills would go up. That's what happened when we put the image under the BPA image analyzer. It has three-dimensional information. So the image is topographic. And that's when they decided to go study the image for themselves. So in 1978, they went, 24 scientists, they spent 5 days studying the Shroud, and they did 30,000 tests, 1,000 tests, 30,000 images. They spent a year before going study, preparing for this examination. And this is, I'm going to just extend it because it's time, just go quickly. The main thing they discovered is that the image disappears when you light the shrouds from behind. If you put light from behind and take a picture of the shroud from the front, there is no image. You can see the blood, you can see the burn marks, you can see the water stains, but you can see the image. Which means it was not because of anything that glued the fibers together. The image is not because you glued the fiber together by paint or anything. The image is only on the fibers themselves. They did not find the images when we looked straight onto the cloth. There was no paint here. Just the fibers changed color. They found dirt on the shroud that matches dirt from Jerusalem. So the conclusion they came up with, and this is very significant, no pigments, paints, dyes, or stains have been found on the fibers. The shroud image is that of a real human form, of a crucified man. It is not the product of an artist. What is it? We don't know. It's an ongoing mystery, and until further chemical studies are made, the problem remains unsolved. Okay? Recently, they did another test because the image is so superficial. It's only 0.2 to 0.6 micrometer deep. Okay, so we did another test in Italy. It's the organization is called the National Agency of New Technologies. They used vacuum ultraviolet rays to try to copy the image just the same way, the same thickness. So you wanted to produce an image that's very slim like this, 0.2 to 0.6 micrometer. The only way they could do this is by using vacuum ultraviolet laser pulses lasting 10 to the power minus 9 of a second. Estimated it should take 34,000 billion watts of vacuum ultraviolet radiation to produce the whole image. So that's very significant. So the last thing I want to say is This guy is doing scan electron microscopy on a small sample he received from the blood stain that's on the forehead, and he found bone tissue. So when they hit Jesus, the crown of thorn actually dug into his skull, into the skull. That's why we have bone tissue on this blood stain. So why is it Jesus? How do we know this is Jesus? So we know it's a crucified one. 34 scientists said it's a crucified one. How do we know it's Jesus? This is the last slide. And then I'm going to talk about the carbon-14 quickly. How do we know this is Jesus? We know it's a crucified one. So what's unique to Jesus? First of all, what's that? Yes.
I think it has something to do with the chromosomes.
Hmm.
They did. How's that?
Yeah, they did DNA tests, but what's the DNA of Jesus? How do you know?
Because he has 23.
No, that's not true. No, they found lots of DNA. 95% of it is non-European. Crown of thorns, thank you. Yeah, I can give you another picture. You already have one. The crown of thorns is unique to Jesus. What else is unique to Jesus? The body was buried. We usually discard the bodies in a common pit. When people are crucified, the body is buried. That's the first unique thing. The second thing, it's wrapped in an expensive cloth. Crucified people are cursed. Why is he buried in a $90,000 linen? Fine linen, yes. The one, yeah, even the side one. So we know that Jesus received double punishment. He was severely flogged and crucified. So usually they just flog you a little bit and then they crucify you. But Pilate wanted to release Jesus. So he flogged him severely to show him to the people so that they feel bad. And he said, behold the man. And instead of releasing him, they said, crucify him. So he received the flogging and he received the crucifixion. And because he received both punishment, he died soon. And that's why they lanced him instead of break his legs. They crowned him with thorns, which is unique because his punishment was King of the Jews. Over him, the sign says, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. So to mock the King of the Jews, they gave him a crown of thorns. Nobody else in history has a crown of thorns. The lancing, no signs of decomposition, and the body exits the cloth without disturbing the blood clots. So if you think someone is bandaged up like this, and he exits the cloth, by ripping it off, the blood stains would not be complete like what we have. There is not a single blood stain that's disturbed. And that's it. So the main thing is what St. John Chrysostom says. This all teaches that God loves us more than the father, a mother, a friend, or any else could love. Even more than what we are able to love ourselves. This is the message of this is the witness. It's a silent witness. You can see it, how much Jesus loves you. Quickly I'll go over the crown of the carbon-14. What we know, for 27 years they would not release the raw data of the test. So in 2018, the scientist, he was an atheist, raised in an atheist family. His name is Tristan Casabianca. He went to court asking for the raw data. So they did the test. He would not release the raw data. So when they released the raw data, there's something called the significance level. It has to be more than 5%. The control samples were showing 90%, 70%, 60%. The Shroud was only 5%. When they tested the numbers again, it was actually 1.4%. So the test fails on homogeneity. The sample they took, by their own numbers, is non-homogeneous. It has contamination. So that means that the carbon-14 cannot be trusted. So that's just a summary, quick summary of what happened. In 2015, another scientist took a sample very close to the carbon-14 dating, and he found cotton fibers and he found gum. So this part was probably mended. Because as you can see, the parts on the corner are the first parts to get damaged, even in this shroud. So this part was mended by cotton. There's no cotton anywhere else in the shroud. This has cotton, it has dyes. So they tested a patch. So they tested the fabric
What's the resurrection itself? You don't know what happened.
That's another theory. So there is
Radiation could be anything.
yes. So carbon-14 is not the best way to test this cloth because there is a supernatural event that happened. So when the supernatural event happened, it could have given neutrons to the carbon. And that's why people say you don't test a shroud
Why
for.
would the Pope say this was hoax? The Roman Catholic Pope a few years ago.
Sorry.
The Pope himself said the Shroud of Turin is hoax. It's not true.
I don't believe him. I don't. Yeah, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, it's yes.
So in the carbon dating, is it safe to assume that the cloth was degraded?
Yeah, it's the cloth is definitely the image is fading, not because the image is fading, it's because the background is darker. The older the cloth gets, the darker it will become, and the image will be same. They tested, instead of the carbon-14, they did 5 different dating methods, and in all these dating methods, the shroud is from the 2nd century before Christ to the 5th century after Christ. The most recent one is when the shroud was in the news. They did the wide-angle X-ray with the diffraction, and it came back 1st century, matching the cloth from Masada, which was destroyed in 17. So the different dating methods, it actually shows the shroud ancient. But the carbon-14 is not that, as Abuna said, because there was a supernatural event that printed this image, then you can't really know how the carbon was impacted by that. So carbon-14 is not the best way to treat it, and the sample shows it's not complex. Actually, if you go to the same pattern of the carbon-14 that they tested, because there is a pattern, every inch it moves by 200 years. So if they estimate in the middle here, it's going to date to the future. If they take a sample from the middle, it's going to date to the future. Any questions? Yes.
What happened to the handkerchief?
The handkerchief. We're talking about this. This is another story. So this is in Oviedo, Spain. Am I holding it right? No. In Oviedo, Spain. The handkerchief served a different purpose. So we think that the handkerchief was on the body during the resurrection. That's not actually what happened. So the handkerchief, the purpose of the handkerchief was to collect fluids. When they lanced him, the lungs collapsed, the fluid starts to come out from his mouth and nose. You can't let this happen, as the Jewish culture is, they have to collect that stuff. So the handkerchief that was in Spain since the 7th century, it was in Alexandria for 3 years. It was in Jerusalem before that, went to Alexandria for 3 years because the Persians were attacking, and then it went to Spain, southern Spain. The Muslims started attacking, it went to northern Spain. It's been in northern Spain since the 6th century, 7th century. And they didn't know the meaning of the handkerchief because they were keeping it like this. Until 1946, I think, there was a Jesuit priest that went and studied the handkerchief, and he discovered the purpose of the handkerchief. I want to show you here. If you can see here, this is the back of the head. So this is the blood stain that's here. The handkerchief was not on the face during the resurrection. So what happened is, when the fluids start to seep out of his mouth and nose, someone stitched this to the back of the head, here, okay, wrapped it to the front, and then stitched it to the beard and the head and back again. So they double layered the handkerchief. And the handkerchief was like this until Jesus was in the grave, and then they took the handkerchief because it served its purpose. It collected the blood, and they put it to the side, and then they wrapped him in the shroud. So that handkerchief was on the face of Jesus after he died on the cross.
Was it preserved until today?
It's present. Yes.
It's
This is
preserved.
preserved in Oviedo, Spain. They did studies. They're actually doing more studies on the handkerchief because it's more accessible. Now, the shroud is not accessible. The handkerchief is accessible. So you're doing a lot of studies on the handkerchief. They did a recent thing that they use software that used to compare fingerprints. And the blood stains on the handkerchief matches the blood stain on the shroud up to 85%. The blood stains on the face. Because there's no image here. This is where, I'll show you something.
Did they determine the blood type of all
AB, same blood type, same pollen grains,
No, what
dirt
type?
on the nose as well.
What type of it?
AB.
AB?